Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the P-LotPodcast. John here, joined once again by the main man himself. Michael, how we doing, dude?
We are doing good, man. Last night, me, my girlfriend, my sister, and her boyfriend, we all went out to all-you-can-eat sushi. So,
I like how you refer to Ethan as the boyfriend. That's.
no, it's not Ethan. No, not Ethan.
Oh,
But
Maria. Oh my God,
my
oh,
sister,
Maria. I
Maria.
just.
No,
All
I.
right. You see how much coffee you got left in here, Michael? It's not getting
Yeah, yeah, you
anywhere.
barely made a sit. Listen, I'm dragging a little bit, and I think the fish is weighing me down from the from the all you can eat sushi last night. Truly a wonderful experience, but quite a lot of food. But yeah, we also had some, you know, a one good WBC game, but I'll say that anytime I get to watch the Dominican Republic play baseball, it is a good World Baseball Classic game because they are just so enjoyable to watch. They are like the epitome of what I think baseball should be like. Electric, exciting, everyone into it, the entire dugout going nuts all the time. Christopher Sanchez was surgical, which was really, really nice to see. Struck out 8 over 5 innings. Um,
Oh,
Shout out Knowles to clinch the number 1 seed in Pool B for Italy with a 5 shutout inning performance, against Mexico, which is not a slouch lineup at all either. He's looked awesome.
they were
I'm
underdogs in that game.
Dude, I'm bullish. I'm super bullish. We're not here to talk about baseball, unfortunately, because there
I
has
was
been
just going
some
to say
madness.
at work, I cracked a joke. I made a paraphrased a line Henry Hill says in Goodfellas, where he says when Tommy was made, it was like we're all getting made. I said when Aaron Nola threw 5 shutout innings, it's like we all threw 5 shutout innings.
It's true, man. You felt it. You absolutely felt the, you know, it was exciting. I felt like I was watching a Phillies game when he's out there and shoving. I'm like, oh, this
Yeah,
is awesome.
and I messaged you and was like obscene Nola glaze coming on the podcast this weekend. You were like, it's not glazing, John, if it's truth. I was dying laughing.
Dude, because it is true. It's a shame. I'm not gonna be able to fully gush, but I'll gush when we talk about when we do some more baseball related predictions over the next week and a half or so. But
So you're gonna pick him
we,
to finish in the top 10, the Cy Young, because he threw 5 shutout innings against like
well, he's
the White
slotted
Sox,
now.
essentially.
No, come on. He's slotted to, you know, knock on wood here, and if things go their way, they got a long ways to go. They got 2 tough games ahead of them, if they win even today. But I think he'd be slotted to pitch the finals against
Could you
the
imagine if Italy
either the
won the
Dominican
World Baseball
Republic.
Classic because Knowles
If
just
Knowles shoves against
Knowles
either
just
the
throws like
Dominican
six
Republic or the
shutout
US.
innings?
I mean, that'd be awesome if he did, but I think that Italy's got a tough shot. They won their pool, and
Some
then they got
Michelangelo
totally
fanfic right there.
they
Like,
got royally screwed by the like bracket that they have to go play Venezuela, and then the winner of or sorry, they have to go play Puerto Rico, and then if they win, the winner of Japan, Venezuela, which is just pretty brutal to ask for. But World Baseball Classic has been enjoyable as always. But we are here to talk about something else. We are here to talk about the National Football League as free agency opened up this week, and there was quite the barrage of moves getting canceled, teams pivoting off said canceled moves, rumor mill, all of the above has occurred. And we are here to break it down. We're going to go and comb through the divisions, starting in the AFC, working our way to the NFC, and just talking about, the big moves that went down and, the things that feel notable. Throughout the NFL. So, do you want to kick us off with the AFC East?
yeah, sure. Yeah, so we'll start off here with the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills, Michael, as we always like joke around with the Bills. They like never make big signings, with the exception of them just blowing a ton of money on Von Miller's corpse
Hmm.
a few years ago. I
Right.
mean, they're not very well run. Like, yeah, they re-signed Connor McGovern, you know, very good center. Um, and then they just and then obviously they redid the contract with Tyler Bass, Bass to Mouth, underrated fantasy team name. Uh, um,
Dawson Knox got a new
Dawson
3-year
Knox.
deal.
Yeah, we talked about in the last show. It looks like their big offseason move is just DJ Moore, and
Well, I
then
would give him two decently sized moves. DJ Moore definitely acquiring
CJ
him for a
Uzomah.
fifth, acquiring him and a fifth for a second. Um, they
And
also
then
signed
Bradley
Bradley
Chubb.
Chubb to a 3-year, $43.5 million deal, which I've seen pretty polarizing takes from it. Like, there's some people that just don't think he's all that good of a player at all. And while you can agree with that, and I sort of agree with that, I don't think Bradley Chubb is anything like game breaking. You are getting him on a contract that isn't that egregious. Only what is that, like 18-ish million a year? Like, it's not that bad, all things considered. Is my math totally wrong on that? I'm not sure.
No,
Uh,
well, it's 3 years, 50. Sorry,
43 and a half.
$43.5 million. So you're paying them roughly, yeah, like 14 million a year, which for an edge is that's like about average.
He's getting like high end 14 and a half million a year. Excuse me. Yeah. He's getting like high end, uh and not even high end. He is getting about like middle of the road edge money, and I think that's probably about fair. And then they signed CJ Gardner Johnson to a 1-year deal. Which that one's interesting too. I think that adds because they did get their like defensive backfield pillaged a little bit. Um, they kept Sam Franklin. They also acquired D. Alford, but CJ definitely brings a little bit of nastiness. We saw he was pretty helpful for that Bears defense, even if he wasn't like the most important piece on there. It was just like another little edge that it brought. Not everywhere works out clearly. He couldn't make it through a full year with the Texans. And that's a really great defense. So,
Well, I think it's also
I,
worth noting that Bears defense, like, let's just be honest, Michael, that Bears defense was low key ass,
it overperformed due to their turnovers. Absolutely. But yeah,
and
the Bills not doing anything, I would say, that like blows you away, right? They're not doing anything that
yeah,
makes
there were
you.
linked in trade rumors for like AJ Brown. Their name was thrown around for other players. Michael, they're kind of, it's like, I don't know, man. The knock on the Bills is that they're sort of like oh man, I guess what people accuse the Phillies of, just running it back. They're just running back the same team. I mean, you got Josh
Mhm.
Allen, you got James Cook, you know, um, obviously they have, oh God, why am I forgetting his name? Their tight end.
Dalton Kincaid.
Colin Kincaid, yes, thank you. Their O
But I mean,
line is
them giving
obviously,
Knox another. It's one of those. It's interesting because people like, oh, what did they draft Kincaid for? And like, while I agree that like
yeah,
you
you need to
know
have multiple tight ends in the NFL now. That's like a requirement.
today's meta, you definitely need multiple tight ends, and they need to be able to block. And like Kincaid is not much of a blocker, so not Knox does a lot of that stuff. And yeah, so it's like fine, nothing too offensive. Uh, I guess what's big in their mind is like they need to draft well finally, and I guess what the front office is thinking is that with a new coach, and new as in just promoting your offensive coordinator, is going to be enough to kind of get them over the hump. Like the way that the way that they moved, the way that they were moving was like that. McDermott was the issue. So don't think we can expect like a ton of major changes. Granted, free agency's not done yet. There's still plenty of fish that need to be
And
fried,
I
but
think we're going to see a very active trade market
mhm,
uh, before the draft too, Michael. I know we're still the NFL technically didn't start until this past Wednesday, and I think because we're like a month from the draft, I think we are going to see a very active trade market. We're going to see a lot of teams, I think, and even after the draft too, because I think because of next year's draft, um, I would say the 2027 NFL draft, by FYI, that's with Arch Manning, Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah,
Like,
and there's a lot of
there's
guys. So
tons of guys too. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of teams are going to be looking to trade players after the draft because they want their new
yeah,
acquisitions to start or play right away, and you know teams are going to be looking for picks for next year. And yeah, but
let's move
nothing.
on. Let's move
Let's move
on to
on.
the
Obviously,
Miami
Dolphins.
Dolphins. Their biggest
Uh,
move was acquiring Malik Willis to a 3-year, $67.5 million deal, 45 million fully guaranteed. Um, it, this was one of the landing spots rumored for Malik Willis to go to due to Jeff Hafley getting hired down there as the head coach, although being a defensive coordinator and the head coach, not offensive. But this one, it
well,
kind of annoys me. You know what I mean? Like, I like Malik Willis a lot, but the scheme that they're going to be running,
oh, you're not a fan of the Bobby Slowick Kevin Patullo combination?
yeah, like I'm just thinking about how I'm sure helpful Matt LaFleur was into making Malik Willis's life easier. So much so that the Packers offense, it was just still very, very solid to pretty good with Malik Willis. And Malik Willis played awesome last year in his few games, starting for the injured Jordan Love. And I'm thinking that like I really do think a team that is in a position to contend should have taken a shot on Willis as opposed to a team like the Dolphins, where we talked about this a little bit pre-show, but when you're acquiring and you're like looking at quarterbacks or whatever, I think a big part of it is trying to toe the line to maximize the value of the player based on the contract that they have. And we hear that all the time with, quarterbacks on a rookie deal. You got to make it work when you're only paying the quarterback, a rookie contract. You got to really spend elsewhere to make the team better. And hopefully you cash in before the quarterback gets paid because we know how it's so hard for quarterbacks to win after they get paid, and we see that all across the league, really, except for like Patrick Mahomes. Even Jalen, his cap hit wasn't all
Stafford.
that big when they won the Super Bowl. Yeah, like you want to try to cash in. You see Darnold last year not taking up a enormous chunk of the cap like some other quarterbacks, and shouldn't because he isn't like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But they still won because of it. You see Brock Purdy get paid like he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. The Niners team struggles behind it. You see Tua get paid like that. The team falls behind. You know what I mean? So it's that sort of give and take. So I think Malik Willis is being like pretty fairly compensated for a guy that doesn't have like a ton of experience, but I do think there's upside to it. And I just think that the team that would have been able to get the most out of him would have been more likely to be a team that's closer to winning, you know what I mean? I think of the Indianapolis Colts, and they just decided to keep Daniel Jones. We'll talk about that. A team like the Minnesota Vikings, and they ended up getting Kyler Murray, which I think is a better move considering you're only paying him the minimum. Even a team like the Rams, if you know that Stafford, like this is his last year or something like that, I think having Willis as a relatively expensive backup for a year, but you just backload the hell out of the contract where his cap hit this year was like next to nothing, and then Stafford retires, and now you have the quarterback, you have your next quarterback, and hopefully the team is still good enough around him where you could contend. You know what I mean? I thought those would have been the better fits for Malik Willis versus say the Dolphins, which the Dolphins aren't any close to actually contending, right? Like they're not even sniffing
I know
their own
exactly where
division.
you're getting at, Michael, because next year's draft's we're gonna see potentially 3 or 4 quarterbacks possibly taken in the first round. That if you're the Dolphins, why would you commit? Basically, I mean, the way the contract appears, it's very much like a 1 year deal that looks like a 3 year deal, where most of the money is up front, right? So if and obviously if they draft a quarterback, you still have Malik Willis kind of as like as a shepherd until the next QB is ready. But no, we agree. I don't think the Dolphins are going to be anything special next season. I mean, their defense wasn't bad. And I think with Jeff Hafley now there, like people regard him as one of the best defensive minds in the NFL.
Sure.
And offensively, I mean, obviously Devon Achane he's a top 5 running back, in the NFL, and
Yeah.
Jalen Waddle's a really good receiver. Ollie Gordon looked promising in his limited touches. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to make of this Dolphins team. They look like you're gonna laugh when I say this. They're kind of like in purgatory. They're not they're not like Cardinals bad or like Raiders bad, but they're
No, and I
also
think this move just
nowhere near being a playoff team.
yeah, I think this move puts them in like that
Purgatory.
7-win range where like it's just not totally where you want to be. Especially because we don't totally trust whatever the new like coaching regime is bringing. Even with Hafley, like I think he's good, and I guess he's pretty well respected. But we saw how much that defense struggled without Parsons and stuff. That like you'd like to think a great defensive mind. Like when I think of a great defensive mind, I look at Robert Saleh, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, so that defense lost all of their good
So you
players,
think
quite
he's like
literally
maybe like a
all of them.
Jonathan Gannon where everyone's just like glazing him because he's
Maybe. I'm
where he's
not.
just
I don't want
glazed,
to
where
like.
he's so well respected where friggin' Jonathan Gannon put his hands
Well,
on one of his own players.
I'll be intrigued to see what Jonathan Gannon looks like in Green Bay as their D coordinator again, because that's. I mean, listen, he's got a guy like Michael Parsons. He's got a pretty talented. Like it's just more maybe a little more put together than what um, Arizona had to offer. But anyways, Miami also signed Tutu Atwell. They re-signed Greg Dulcich, Ben Sims, Josh Uche. Shout out. But really, nothing too earth-shattering other really than the Malik Willis move. So I guess let's head over to New England. They signed. They actually made some decently sized signings. They brought in Draymond Jones from the Tennessee Titans. Excuse me, Baltimore Ravens. He got traded to the Ravens. That's right. He was a Titan that got traded to the Ravens at the deadline. 3-year, $39.5 million deal. Listen, New England still got a ton of money to spend. They signed Kevin Byard to a 1-year, $9 million contract. They signed Romeo Doubs to a 4-year, $70 million contract. And they signed Elijah Vera Tucker to a 3-year, $42 million contract. So, and also Reggie Gilliam to a 3-year deal, up to $12 million as a fullback. So I honestly, I'm not like opposed to any of those moves. I think Elijah Vera Tucker is it's almost like an do you ever like a high risk offensive lineman? That's not usually something that gets assigned to those sort of players, but he is a guy
When
that's
he's
gotten banged
healthy,
up.
when
Yeah,
he's
he's
healthy,
quite good.
he's a very good player. The problem is his health, is him staying healthy. And I mean, listen, we can crack all the jokes we want about. Oh, the Patriots just got up, a former Jet. Watch him stay healthy his entire time there and
Right.
make a Pro Bowl or two because the Jets are the Jets. Yeah, I mean, I would say this, Michael. Their off season this year, very similar free agency approach to last year, with the exception of obviously signing Milton Williams. I mean, you look at a lot of the guys; they basically were like trash picking.
Mhm.
You know, Clavion Cason, Harold Landry, guys that were cut, or guys that were I don't want to say busts, but like inconsistent, find
But listen, they
consistency.
went to a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like,
You're right. Yes. Yeah. Schedule merchants.
listen, so I mean, when you're a schedule merchant, these are the sort of moves that you do where it's like, all right, you still have a ton of money to spend. We got to spend it.
Let's just address the elephant in the room. Patriots fans were desperately manifesting AJ Brown to be a Patriot, and why were they was so obsessed with getting AJ Brown? Number one, he's better than Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs still pretty. I think he's still a very useful player, but AJ Brown is a great human being. He's a guy that's loved by his teammates. Diggs is, I mean, I don't know. Did you ever hear anybody say anything about AJ Brown not to bring their sister around near him or anything
No, absolutely.
on video? Like, yeah, that's my point. Like,
Yeah, and
AJ Brown
listen,
gets so much unnecessary hate,
yeah,
and he's
I,
probably and
yeah,
he's probably one of like the best human beings in the NFL. So he's a great
yeah,
locker room guy great guy for like for his teammates, and number like second reason, uh, uh their quarterback they need to improve in some areas because they're gonna be playing like the Bills twice. They're gonna play the Broncos again. They're gonna play like I think their schedule's way tougher. They're playing a first place schedule.
yeah. I want to look at their opponents actually. They play the NFC North, so that's tough. At Chicago, at Detroit, and then home Green Bay and home Minnesota. They also play the AFC West, so they play at Arrowhead, at the Chargers. Their first place schedule, not for nothing, it actually ended up not being that terrible. Like they're at the Jags, which the Jags are good, but like it's not some unbeatable force, especially unless they keep improving. And then they're also home against the Steelers, which come on. But they're also at Seattle for a Super Bowl rematch at some point as the extra game. So
Well,
there's
they
definitely
got
some tough
pillaged,
games
the
in there.
Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, there are. But listen, you go get they don't get AJ Brown, that is feels like a trade could come. Definitely doesn't feel like it would come now. Um, if I had to be totally honest, I feel like it just comes next year, but if he really doesn't want to be here that bad, they'll probably figure something out where it doesn't totally tank the cap by the
Yeah,
end of
this
the
is
summer.
it does feel like
Um,
AJ Brown is now mostly cap related.
regardless, Romeo Doubs is a solid player, like no doubt about it. Especially like he had
I
some
don't like that for
run.
Green Bay.
No, I don't particularly either, unless they really do feel like Matthew Golden is going to be more involved and
Well, I
like a more
just feel like
complete
Jordan
receiver.
Love's like when Tom Brady was with New England, like he always had like his like like he had like a go to receiver in like short yardage situations he would go to like a Danny Amendola or like a Julian Edelman. And I'm not saying that Dobbs is like those type of players. I think he's obviously way better than Danny Amendola and probably like on the level of Julian Edelman, but
Yeah, yeah.
that's like his go-to guy when Tucker Kraft went down, and now it's like the Green Bay still kind
Well, to
of
be
doesn't
honest,
have a number one receiver. It's like they kind of
he's
like
he's been the healthiest one over the years. Like Christian Watson, I would say is probably the best one, but he just gets banged up a lot. And when he was healthy, you saw how he was actually huge. Like he was a really nice player last year down the stretch. But Doubs had a handful of weeks of being quite good, where guys were banged up, and like Jaden Reed being banged up all the time, and Dontavian Wicks being in that lineup. They still got guys, and if they feel pretty high about Matthew Golden, which like polarizing, I guess. Losing him isn't the end of the world. Um, I guess I don't think I would have wanted to give him that contract. Not that it's anything crazy, but if I was Green Bay, I probably wouldn't have wanted to like pay Dobbs first before anything else or Dobbs. I'm not sure. I thought it was Dobbs, so maybe it's Dobbs. Um, but for New England's sake, I do think it helps. I think it brings some more consistency to the receiver room. You definitely, I think, still want to improve off of it because last year, even with Diggs, it was still, inconsistent and lacking. So I do think it would behoove them to keep trying to add. But, Kevin Byard was really good last year for Chicago. That's a going back to tennis with Vrabel, back to the Tennessee days. So yeah, let's move on to the Jets. Um,
well,
they're running it back. Kidding. They're acquiring Geno Smith from the Las Vegas Raiders for a seventh and a sixth. And overall, I think this is fine. You need to have someone play quarterback. And I think
much better
this is
offensive
all
line with
right.
the Jets than the with the Raiders.
Yeah. And it's like, you keep Brees Hall on a franchise tag. they're gonna still try to work on a contract. We'll see if he ends up taking it. Um, Jelani Woods re-signed. Uh, they re-signed Max Mitchell. They gave a 1-year deal to Onyemata, which I thought was a nice move. They acquired Tavondre Sweat, which I thought was actually quite a nice move for Jermaine Johnson. They're signing a lot of old guys. They're acquiring older players. They signed Demario Davis, which will definitely bring some consistency, but he is definitely old. Minka Fitzpatrick, they also acquired in a trade, also like older at this point, signing a 3-year deal. So obviously, they're not even remotely close to winning. They also signed Nashawn Wright, which I thought was nice, but obviously, they're not even close to competing or whatever. But they are bringing, I think, together a decent enough floor that, say, next year, if they suck again and it's like they're in arch range or something, you're going to bring them in and you're not going to be like a total barren wasteland. You know what I mean?
I think it's hilarious that Dante Moore didn't want to be a Jet, and now he could still be a Jet.
Wow. Wow. I mean, yeah, I guess he could.
I mean,
But
the Jets right now are literally the Jets. Actually, they are tanking. This is a 110% tank job they're doing, but it's smart because listen, you're going to be in position to draft a franchise quarterback next year, and they're going to be in a position picking number 2 now in this draft to get like a freak of nature in Arvell Reese, on that
mhm,
defense. That Jet defense could be really good in 2 years, is what I'm saying.
mhm,
So
mhm,
you're not going to go in free agency and like just go buck wild with like signing guys like with like 2 big long term contracts, right? Like
right.
Demario Davis they could just flip him for a draft pick. You know what I mean? Like you might
Mhm,
sign like guys you could just flip for more picks too at the
yeah.
trade deadline. You know,
Yeah,
I would say
exactly.
I would say the big thing here though is them tagging Brees Hall. He's still
The best
young
player,
and he's a nice player. I agree. But yeah, it's the Jets though, so let's just move on. Baltimore Ravens.
The Ravens have a lot of stuff that happened.
Let's just
So
talk about this first. The Ravens got pillaged in free agency.
yeah, they lost a lot. They lost Linderbaum. Who did you know what? There's got to be somewhere. I'm gonna keep talking. I'm gonna look something up real quick.
They lost Draymond Jones.
That's right. Uh, they. mm, Oh, they lost Isaiah. Oh, yeah, they lost Isaiah Likely to the Giants. They lost Charlie Kolar to the Chargers, which I
They
think is a
lost their
pretty.
law. They
I mean,
lost
you
their
lost two tight
longtime
ends.
fullback.
Yeah, they lost two tight ends, which I think are pretty big losses there. They lost Keaton Mitchell to the Chargers, which I think is a nice underrated move for them.
Eckler
Um,
replacement.
yeah, so they definitely lost some guys. Uh, that is tough. I do think that's tough. And then they had the whole saga. So the Ravens sent 2 first-round picks to the Raiders for Max Crosby on what, Monday? So the league year hadn't started yet. It was an illegal tampering period, which like legal tampering, I mean, what are we talking about? Anyways, so a day or so later, the trade is off. Trade is canceled. The
I have a
Ravens
theory on
back
that, but
out.
go ahead.
And the first round picks go the Raiders in that time frame had spent a ton of money in free agency. They are losing out on 2 first round picks that they thought they had acquired, and they're taking back on 30 plus $1 million of cap hit from Max Crosby, and he's back on the team. And Baltimore then very quickly pivots and signs Trey Hendrickson to a 4-year, $112 million deal with a maximum value of up to $120 million. And everyone has the tinfoil hats on, and I may have it on with them, that they feel as though I'll give the most common conspiracy is that They made the trade. You knew that Max Crosby was recovering from a knee injury, and the fact of the matter is that whether it's because they were seeing that Trey Hendrickson would get a little bit less money per year, or if they, like, just flat out got cold feet and were like, "You know what? I don't wanna lose both these first round picks. I just wanna go get Trey Hendrickson." And they canceled the trade, said it was because of the knee, and they went out and got Hendrickson. And now
I was about to say, I think the Ravens saw how pillaged they got in free agency, like obviously losing Linderbaum, Draymond Jones, Isaiah Likely. Now your only tight end on the roster is old Mark Andrews, and
Mhm.
I think Ravens fans, I think, kind of probably want to move on from Mark Andrews at this
That's
point,
not happening, but
and they just re-signed him.
yeah.
Um, I personally think that they probably saw how much they lost, and then they probably saw Hendrickson's market decrease, or Hendrickson's agent reached out to the Ravens saying like, "Hey, look, you know, Trey's getting offers from like some bad teams, or Trey wants to go to a winning team. Like, what are your thoughts on, you know, Trey Hendrickson being a Raven? And they're
Mhm.
probably and they knew they could. And then I think that's when they got the cold feet, because I think their intention. I think they did not expect the Raiders to pay Tyler Linderbaum like he's a left tackle.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I mean, I think it was a mix of pretty much everything. I really
That's because that trade was agreed upon before free agency, the legal tamping period began.
yeah, and where I'm gonna, like, not give them the benefit of the doubt and why I think the Ravens were snaky in this is the whole, like, Jair Alexander thing last year. The Eagles acquired him for what, like a 6th, 7th
Big
pick
swap.
swap or whatever, so, like, not really much of anything, and then he never plays, you, like, never see him in uniform in practice, and he just kinda up and is out, and they ended up having him pay the salary back, but they never made a big public stink about it. They never demanded the trade get fixed again, and it just makes me think that the Ravens kinda just been pulling off some shady business, that it's like they are within, like, the rules of how you can go about trades, but kinda being just shady about it, that it's like, yeah, you know that obviously if a guy fails a physical, they fail a physical. There's no, like, hard lines of what failing a physical means. It's up to the, like, interpretation of team doctors if they feel as though they're healthy enough to want to acquire, right? And when a guy's recovering from a knee injury, I mean, there's obviously gonna be some sort of concern, but I don't know, either the Raiders were BSing that his knee really wasn't, was a lot worse or whatever, but I find it hard to believe. I really, really do. I think that the way Max Crosby was playing last year was playing at a very high level. I do think the Ravens, like, ultimately having the 2 first-round picks is nice, I guess, but I do think Trey Hendrickson's the best asset in this deal. You know what I mean? I thought this trade was like a win-win at the time for both sides, and now it's like the
The Ravens are
Raiders
looking
sorta
at
get
the Ravens.
screwed.
I think the Ravens are looking at it now like, because we lost so many guys, like 14. Let's say at pick 14 now. It's
What
like,
if Bane slips and they can move up and go draft Bane? Now all of a sudden
or
I'm like, "You know what?
Caleb Downs, or
Sure, like
what if they're
any
in
of
love with
those sort of
Kenyon
guys."
Sadiq? They lost two of their tight ends, like, and
And
Mark
he's no
Andrews is
blocker,
old.
Kenyon Sadiq, um, but I'm just thinking, like, even if they wanna just keep addressing the edge, because apparently they wanted to make the Crosby trade and then also go out and sign Hendrickson and create some crazy edge rush duo, which, like, whatever, I guess that's true, but if it is, maybe they do draft Bane if he slides, and they use the first round pick next year to move up from 14 to, like, 8 or something like that. You know what I mean? Maybe they go and do something like that.
Or they trade back and get more picks to fill all these roster holes.
But the Ravens, they do still have a ton of holes that they need to go make, or they need to go fill. They signed John Simpson to a 3-year, $30 million deal, which doesn't super excite me. I feel like they could have been They could have taken a swing at like Elijah Vera Tucker. I think they needed the higher ceiling sort of player, Baltimore, just as much as New England did. They also re-signed Chidobe Awuzie to a 1-year, $5 million contract. So they're not doing much. They handed out a nice big contract to Hendrickson. They handed out a decent contract to John Simpson, and they've just let a lot of guys walk through the door. So it definitely feels like Baltimore. Maybe John Harbaugh had more say over the roster than we thought, and like had it better under control because this definitely feels. It just feels bad. Like this does not feel like a good offseason thus far for Baltimore. Staying in the AFC North, let's head to Cincinnati. The Bengals. They gave an extension to Orlando Brown. They re-signed Dalton Risner. They signed a 3-year. They gave a massive contract. That I don't like. 3 years, $60 million to Boye Mafe,
Yeah, it's called
and
incompetence tax.
that is a lot of money. They gave Jonathan Allen 2 years, $26 million
That's
with the max by
incompetence
28.
tax plus
I,
Super Bowl.
yeah, I yeah, I don't think that's crazy, but like I don't think it's great either. And they gave 3 years, $40 million to Brian Cook. I don't know. The Bengals. eh, It's going to take a lot to repair a defense that's that bad, but I guess just throwing money at some fine enough players will help, I
Well,
guess.
they're probably. I think we all know they're going to probably take an edge rusher in about a month and a half from now,
Mhm, mhm.
especially with the loss of Hendrickson. You saw how contentious that
Yeah,
those negotiations were. It's even more frustrating for as a Bengals fan is like Bengals. I feel like the Bengals always lose like their big name players because they're just cheapskates,
sure.
and it's got to really sting to see Hendrickson go to the Ravens, especially because when they were just cheap skating it up. At least they weren't like in the AFC North.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
they're going to other teams, but not like the AFC. Like it was not like their biggest rival. You
yeah.
know,
And then the Browns, they very interesting offseason because all of their like starting offensive line were free agents that left basically. So they had to very much address
and
the
they all were
offensive line
injured.
situation. Yeah. So earlier in the offseason, they traded for Titus Howard, gave him a 3-year, $63 million contract. They only traded a fifth for him. Not that Titus Howard is anything crazy, but like it's just kind of a starting caliber tackle, and they definitely needed one of those. Um, Zion Johnson got a pretty nice contract, 3 years, just about 50 million. And they got Elton Jenkins from the Green Bay Packers, which I thought that was a pretty nice move. I think that's a pretty tough loss for Green Bay there. Absolutely. 2 years, 24 million. Um, when you look at that and then you look at what like Linderbaum got, and that's just like totally two different stratospheres. And then they signed Quincy Williams as well to be the linebacker. So I don't think the Browns are like doing anything necessarily bad. I genuinely, they're in just such a hell spot until Watson's off the team. Genuinely.
I agree. I also think too. You look at Andrew Berry, Eagles pedigree. What do the Eagles always want to focus on, Michael? Building out
In the
the
trenches.
trenches, yes. And listen, your Shador is probably going to be the starting quarterback for them. When I say
Probably.
probably, it's because who knows with the Cleveland Browns,
Hmm.
right? But listen, Todd Monken came from Baltimore. Baltimore's focus also is building the trenches, being good. I mean, they took a center in the first round, Michael, in
Right.
Baltimore. You know,
Right.
he's probably told them, listen, we got to build out our offensive line. Like, we can't have what happened to you guys last year when we have, a raw, talented quarterback in Shador Sanders. So there you go. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a bad move. Like bad off-season moves at all. It's just the Browns.
mhm.
On to the Steelers, which ugh,
I
you
think
know what
they
I
had a
mean?
good offseason. I think so far they've been doing well.
I don't know. Like it's Rico Dowdle, I think's a nice move considering he's not getting paid a lot of money either, only 6 million a year. Now he obviously fell off pretty hard by the end of the season last year, but early in the season was quite efficient, quite effective. And
I think
I
it's
think if
interesting
Chuba
Kenny
Hubbard,
got more money than he did.
I think if I mean Kenny's good, man. I think if Chuba Hubbard was healthy all season and they were able to kind of split backfield it, I think they could have managed it better. But since it was just kind of Dowdle, the wheels definitely fell off. They also acquired Michael Pittman and a seventh for a sixth, and they gave him a 3-year, $59 million deal. I'll be honest, like I don't think either are necessarily bad players, but the receiver room of DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman just does not get me out of my
Don't
chair.
you feel like when Michael Pittman 2 years ago got decapitated,
Yeah.
that he's just not been the same player?
He he definitely, I think, lacks some explosiveness that I feel like he was, like, trending with a little bit. The sun's definitely hitting you now. Are your blinds open? It's
No, it's just bright as hell.
Yeah. Listen, it's a work in progress. Maybe we get maybe
Yeah,
a one of those blackout curtains or
I think
something.
I'm probably gonna have to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Here, what if I
Mi
just?
Michael
I'm gonna stand back here. How about that?
Michael Pittman, it felt like there was another gear to his play, and then he kinda never reached it, and I don't know, he's fine enough, I guess. I guess the quarterback is just gonna be Rodgers, or, like, was it coach speak, how much Mike McCarthy was, like, gushing about Will Howard, or is that actually a plan? I don't know, but outside of
I
that,
most
Jack
certainly think if Rodgers is not, even if Rodgers comes back, the Steelers are most likely going to be the team, in my opinion at least, that's going to Nussmeier it up.
unironically, like, I do think that Kyler would have been a pretty decent fit with uh, Pittsburgh. I think about what we'll talk about him going to the Vikings, but he's going to Minnesota where that scheme is very much, play action pass, hitting your in breakers over the middle, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And like, listen, Kyler is small. He is a small quarterback. That is not the easiest thing and easiest throw for him to make. You look at where he thrived, and it's that, you know, spread, college-ish, stereotypical college-ish style offense where, you're out 5 wide and, he's kinda able to make adjustments at the line. He has his verticals down the sideline. He has the quick outs, and he's got the quick game hitters and stuff, and it's like, you look at what Mike McCarthy did in Dallas and how he kinda just let Dak cook, and Dak had some really big statistical seasons with that, and I think that Kyler could have hit that well, um, but obviously it seems like they were not even ever interested. They also signed Jack Driscoll, the Steelers, to a 1-year deal, which like shout out. Um, they gave Cam Hayward a new contract. They gave Jamel Dean 3 years, 36 million, which I think is actually decent, and they re-signed Asante Samuel Jr. So I do think the corner room with Joey Porter and Jamel Dean is pretty solid, and Samuel as well. They also gave Jaquan Brisker a 1-year, $5.5 million deal. I know that Eagles fans were not happy that that is all it took for like a starting caliber safety. Darnell Savage also got a 1-year deal. So yeah, while I could agree that I think most of what they did is pretty solid. I just think that truthfully, their hiring of Mike McCarthy and their seemingly commitment to Aaron Rodgers for another year is just enough for me to not get excited about even the good moves that they make.
I agree.
All right, we're on to the AFC South now. The Houston Texans are up first. They have been quite busy. One of the first things they did was they acquired David Montgomery from the Detroit Lions for Juice Scruggs, a fourth round pick, and a seventh. There was a lot of miscommunication on how much that trade was. Maybe fifth round value for a player, a fourth and a seventh, some would say, and then double down on it or triple down on it. Other reporters would say that the seventh was actually going the other direction. They are all just bad at their jobs, it feels like. But
I think
anyways,
they
David
were just all
Montgomery,
rustling to get it out. No one verified
yeah,
what
no one got it right,
exactly.
and no one got it right. So David Montgomery, who is still a nice player. I don't think he's cooked by any stretch of the
No.
imagination. I just think the Lions' running game last year was really held back by the pillaging of their offensive line up
Yeah, but
front.
even so, Michael, David Montgomery averaged around 4.5 yards per carry, despite their O line being bad. So if you're the Houston
Just
Texans,
didn't feel as good last year. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
well, their success rate was lessened. Also, let's just not
Mhm.
pretend
Right,
that
right.
like Ben Johnson wasn't like a huge reason.
No, sure. It was yeah, absolutely. Um, so yeah, absolutely that. And I do think this helps the Texans. I really do. I think this is a nice move for them to pair along with Woody Marks. I think that backfield becomes a lot more dynamic. And like if you want to become a running first offense, I think, or at least take some pressure off of CJ Stroud, I think that helps a lot. They addressed their tight ends as well. They gave a 1-year extension to Dalton Schultz, worth $12 million. It's definitely a lot. Foster Moreau also got signed. They re-signed Trent Brown. They signed a 2-year deal to Braden Smith. They re-signed Ed Ingram to a 3-year, $37.5 million contract. So they gave out some decent
Look,
money
if
to
Nico
offensive
Collins
linemen.
was healthy in that playoff game against the Patriots, they could have been traveling to Denver. Like they
To
could
lose.
have. What
I mean,
with
I guess. Yeah,
what with
we
with
forget how good the defense was, so maybe not.
no,
No, it
like
could have been a
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
ugly
like
Super
yeah,
Bowl
Stiddy. How do you think Stiddy would have done with the
against that
Houston
defense.
Texans defense? Like
Yeah.
literally, like going to like tear him to shreds. Like, come on,
Yeah,
man.
no, for sure. It would have been a lot worse,
Listen, I think
potentially.
the Texans right now. The reason why I think they didn't make any huge moves, they traded for Demo. He's not being paid a whole lot of money, right? They're trying to sit there. I don't want to say they're totally cap strapped, but they know they got to re-sign Stroud. Like the benefit.
I think they're still almost deciding if they really wanna do it, and I think they probably should do it. Um, and I think the way he's kinda played, he's kinda talked himself out of some money, so, maybe he wants to prove it this year. I do think they're definitely, like, treading lightly around, like,
Yeah, this
the
is definitely like
cloud
his
that is
a
that
perfect
extension.
contract year because if he's like really bad for some
Mhm.
reason, which I don't think he will be, by the way,
Yeah.
um, there'll be a lot of quarterbacks available for them to draft.
Yeah. Danielle Hunter, they gave him a 1-year, $40 million extension. He is a great player, though, so I'm not gonna hate on that too much. They also some other small contracts throughout the defense. EJ Speed re-signed. Sheldon Rankins re-signed. The other notable signing, I would say, was Reed Blankenship. Reed Blankenship officially gone. I did truly believe he would be back, and for this money, especially, I really thought he would be back. He's only getting 8.25 million a year. I don't think that's much at all. 3-year, $24.75
Yeah,
million
he's being
dollars.
paid less than Brian Cook. I honestly, Michael,
I would have done it, man. I would have kept him. I can't lie.
I don't think I suspect that maybe Vic didn't want him back because he struggled last year. He had a down year. And listen, we can like stand for. I like Reed Blankenship too, Michael. I'm not.
I didn't think it was the thing is I just didn't think it was that bad. I didn't think Reed was that bad in particular.
I
Like
thought it wasn't exactly good for Reed that when Marcus Epps came into the starting lineup, that Marcus Epps actually I thought maybe played better than Reed Blankenship when they were playing together.
I just felt that the other safety was such a black hole with like inconsistency from Akuba, utter slop from Sidney Brown, that you just brought in what felt like a professional in Marcus Epps of just like a guy that's ready to be in the NFL and stabled it out a little bit. Like
And
we
this is,
saw we've seen over the years.
I think the reason Howie didn't want to bring him back is this is and this is you're gonna I know what you're gonna say. I'm just gonna say from a pure football standpoint, this is a loaded draft at safety,
It
and they
is
have to re-sign Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, Jalen
Jalen Carter.
Carter, probably
Yeah.
Nolan's like either between Nolan Smith and Jalen Sutton. You want to keep one of them too.
No, for
like
sure. Listen,
like
I
long
get it. I
term.
get it.
So they're probably thinking like, oh, we get the safety on the rookie contract for 4 years for cheap, and then we'll work it out after that. Day two, like a day two pick. But on the flip side, the Eagles haven't drafted a Pro Bowl safety since Michael Lewis. Like they have just been bad at drafting safeties. So,
Yeah, I just
and I know
it's
that's
just
and I know that's flawed logic too. Like that's like
it is,
saying
but
they suck at drafting corner, and look, we drafted DeJean and Quinion.
no, I listen, I get it. I just think that I don't know. I think I would have wanted to keep him because I do think he helped stabilize the entire back end. Like when he missed time, the secondary was an utter disaster. Even with DeJean, even with like when would he go down the Cowboy game, and then he all of a sudden Cowboys offense completely opened up down the field, and it's like okay, like
Sidney
I just
Jones
think
sucks.
yeah, no, I get it. He does suck, but like the safety position hasn't been addressed by the Eagles, that's for sure. And as it stands right now, it is Andrew Makuba and Sidney Brown as the only two in the building. And I'll be honest, not super excited about that. I like Makuba. I think he can be nice, but I do think it's going to be a bit of a grind. He's clearly not like Quignon or DeJean, where he's just going to come in right
I
away and be
wonder.
awesome.
So I wonder if because it's a loaded safety draft, the Eagles are going to take a safety, and a team that's also going to draft a safety is going to look to trade maybe a guy expiring contract, like a CJ type situation.
Hmm.
I forget who was the Eagles starting safety in 2022 before we acquired CJ 1 week before the season. Who was it?
Oh, before they got him, who it was going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the safeties was Marcus Epps, obviously, and the other safety was it? It wasn't going to be Blankenship.
No, Reed was the fourth safety. He came
He
in
he was
for
the
CJ when he got hurt because I think the other safety that we would have had was just bad.
yeah. Let me pull up the
Yeah,
2022
Reed
Eagles.
Blankenship was a high priority UDFA in 2022.
Yeah. So the other safety was going to be Blankenship only started 4 games. James Bradbury corner, TJ Edwards, Marcus Epps started every game. Uh,
Was it going to be
CJ
Bradbury?
Gardner Johnson played 12 games. You know who's going to be potentially was Avante Maddox. That's who it was going to be. So it was like Avante Maddox and like Reed Blankenship were going to kind of, I guess, compete for the job. And then they got CJ Gardner Johnson. So dodged a bullet there. Um, but yeah, they didn't bring back CJ either. So we'll see. We will see what they end up doing at safety, but we're
It feels
still
like the Eagles' offseason literally ends like the day before week one.
yeah. So let's keep going here. The
Yeah,
Indianapolis
we
Colts.
got to plow through this here.
We've been hinting at them for a while, but Daniel Jones signs a 2-year, $88 million deal that can be worth up to $100 million in incentives if he hits them. Listen, I know that he was like a total savior for you for like the first 2 months of the season and was like really cool and really exciting. But he got hurt and like it was a pretty serious injury. And we're also talking about Daniel Jones. Like I get it, but we're also talking about
Yeah,
Daniel
this
Jones.
is yeah, right.
It's
And
not Sam Darnold. Like he never had the arm talent
this
or the
feels like a
ability Sam
massive
Darnold had.
indictment on Anthony Richardson, where they just don't they hate him.
I just think you could have just signed Kyler for $1 million. Like the league minimum, you could have had Kyler Murray, which I would have thought would have been a really
Which would
nice
have made
fit.
sense because the other big move they made is they paid Alec Pierce like he's like Puka Nakua.
They gave him a crazy contract 4 year. He got the Trey Hendrickson contract is what they gave. And listen, I like Alec Pierce. I think I watched a cool Theo video where it was like some Deshaun Jackson glaze, and it was basically the importance of a deep threat and how a deep threat really just makes your whole offense better. And he used Deshaun Jackson as a big example where it was like every team Deshaun Jackson came to and left, they were better the year he got there than the year before, and they got worse when he left. Every single team, Philadelphia, Washington, Tampa Bay, every single one of them, even the Raiders, as well, the one season that he was there too. So like it was pretty serious. And he put that into like Jameson Williams's breakout is perfectly in lockstep to when the Lions offense became nuclear, all that sort of stuff. Deep threats are very important. And Alec Pierce is a very important player. It's just a lot of money, man. It's just a lot of money to be giving him $28 million a year when you think about what guys like Devonta Smith get paid and AJ Brown. You know what I mean? It is a lot of money. And I think when you give as much money as you're giving to Daniel Jones and then you turn around and give this big, huge contract out, it doesn't like super. It worries me a little bit. It totally worries me a little bit.
I think it's
Um,
concerning if you're the Colts that you had to pay him. Like he's like, oh, I just wanted to stay in Indy. I love it in Indy. They paid him the market value that like the Patriots would have probably given him.
uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I would say so.
Yeah, because he's like,
Um,
oh my god, I love Indy. Indy's so great now, man. They overpaid to keep him because he just like listen, shout out, get the bag, but like, come on, man. Like, which team's gonna have more likely to go to the Super Bowl this year, the Colts or the Patriots?
right. The Jags, pretty quiet off season, I would say. They gave Chris Rodriguez a 2-year contract. They kept DJ Dallas, and
I'm
really not
actually
much.
shocked they did not attempt to bring in Rashad White
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they
I thought,
lost
and
Travis Etienne. That's a
did
big
he
loss
did
for
he
them.
sign Rashad White, or
He
is he
signed with
still out
the
there?
Commanders.
Okay, I didn't
We'll
see that
see.
actually.
But anyway,
But
listen,
the
they
Jags
lost
didn't do much.
that ETN loss. That's pretty big. Like people kind of forget. Like
Achin, you know what? His name's Achin. I didn't know this, and he just
Travis
said it in his
Etienne.
Achin, which, like, not for nothing, it's not that hard to say. That if he did try to correct people and just no one decided to get it right because they thought ETN was cooler, but I don't know. Regardless, but I'll call him Achin. I'll call him what his name is. Yeah, it is a pretty big miss, I'd say. Travis Achin, like that. He had a pretty big year for them, especially through the air. He wasn't super efficient on the ground, but none of the Jags' rushing attack was all that efficient on the ground. I think they have to address the offensive line, and I guess they're going to be doing that through the draft, it appears, or they're going to just pick up some scraps. Maybe they have a trade in their minds or something. But yeah, nothing really that exciting, I'd say, from Jacksonville. Which then takes us to the Titans, the new uniformed Tennessee Titans, which I think the uniforms are nice. They look just like the Houston Oilers. Um, I will say, I wish they had more red in their uniforms, but that's just an opinion. Um,
The stars
Titans
should
have
be
been.
red.
I just think there should be more red in the uniform itself, bigger stripes that are red or something. I think every player should be required to wear red accessories. I think that would look nice. But they've been pretty busy. They've been pretty busy. Like the most obvious connection, I guess, as soon as they hired Brian Dable as their offensive coordinator, was that Wandale Robinson was going to go there, and he got a nice 4-year, $78 million contract. So that helps out that receiver room for Cam Ward. They also signed Kylan Granson, shout out. They also signed Daniel Bellinger, so a couple of tight ends there that decent little options. They acquired Jermaine Johnson for Tavondre Sweat. They also signed a 3-year, $63 million deal to John Franklin Myers. Um, they acquired Solomon Thomas.
That kind of feels like I don't know, man. That I get. They were most certainly paying a lot of these moves. Definitely paying incompetence tax.
I wouldn't necessarily call it. I think, yes, there are incompetence tax. I definitely think that's a real thing. But I also think that it's one of those, you have so much money to spend that, like, you just kind of have to throw it around a little bit. Not even like, oh, we just got to hit the floor, but it's like when you have this abhorrent amount of cap space to be trying to run the margins with like these surgical acquisitions, I think that it's hard and you end up missing out on more players than you do. Like, look at Carolina. You know what I mean? Last year they tried to get Milton Williams and the Patriots just simply outbid them for 28 million a year. And what were we saying at that time last year? We're like, listen, Milton Williams is a nice player, but I wouldn't give him $28 million a year. And like They went to the Super Bowl, and he was a humongous part of that. So, like, it wasn't incompetence
Yeah,
tax like
it's
we
like
kinda thought
it
it
would have
was.
been it would have been like if 2 years ago, after like Christopher Sanchez had his first like good season, he was a free agent. Somebody paid him an obscene contract, and now it's the Christopher Sanchez we see now in baseball.
Yeah, sure.
You're
It's
paying for an
exactly
ascending player, but
right, where it's
you
like you
know,
gotta I think when you have a lot of money to spend and you're a bad team, you do have to take some sort of risks by overpaying anybody you want.
I just think like my only kind of gripe with the Titans off season, like let's like gripe with the Titans off season is like it was sort of it's like I don't know, it's like Robert Saleh's the head coach and he's like, oh, I need defensive players, and like your quarterback was getting his ass handed to him every game because you can't block.
Yeah,
Why don't you go
yeah,
outside some offense? It's like I don't know. This is kind of why Robert Saleh got fired from the Jets. It was like defense, defense, defense.
yeah. It's, we'll see. I mean, maybe he's just thinking, Cam
And
Ward's
they're going to
enough, we
probably
won't
draft
risk it.
Jeremiah Love. I'm just going to throw that out there, Michael.
We'll see. Um, AFC West, the Broncos, they're still the only team to not acquire an outside free agent. They
Yeah,
re-signed Sam
I gotta say something
Ellinger.
about that, Michael. I was talking to our cousin who's a Broncos fan. Even he was like disappointed. He was
Really?
disappointed with it because it's like, listen, you probably should have beaten the Patriots if Bo Nix was healthy,
Right.
but this is still a like. And listen, the other contenders, like the big name teams, like they all got worse. They didn't get better. The Bills did not get better. I don't think the Ravens got better. The Chiefs got way worse.
Marginally.
Got
Oh,
way worse.
well, yeah, you're right, you're right.
And now it's like the Patriots, the Texans. I mean, none of the contenders got better, in my opinion,
Not
so far.
significantly, not
Right.
significantly.
So they're probably, but look, the Broncos lost guys.
Yeah, they kept a lot of their good players though that were free agents. I think Dobbins was huge for them. The running game definitely took a hit when he got hurt. Although RJ Harvey was like solid, it's just the efficiency of the running attack was a disaster.
I'm actually
Um,
shocked they re-signed Dobbins, not because he's not a good player, but you mean to
I
tell
think
me?
Sean Payton views it like a Kamara Ingram situation, and he loved that
Yeah,
duo. So
Sean
I think,
Payton, yeah, the real coaching
well,
genius, trying to go for a
li-
fourth down. We didn't
well,
really need to with friggin' Stiddy.
yeah. Well, Lil Jordan Humphrey they kept too, who had a fine moments. Adam Troutman, Alex Singleton. I thought that was a nice keep for them. I don't know. They're clearly have some. We'll see what they do come draft time if
Yeah, they're
they
dumb
make
as
any
hell.
trades or anything.
Yeah, we'll
The
see.
Kansas City Chiefs, they lost one of their corners in free agency to the Rams. They traded the other corner to the Rams with McDuffie and
They
Jalen
lost Brian
Watson,
Cook.
and they signed Kenneth Walker. Now, listen, I think Kenneth Walker is awesome. I think he's a really good player. And you know what? Against this Chiefs offensive line, with the Chiefs offensive line that was able to have like Kareem Hunt run very efficiently and effectively, I do think that Kenneth Walker can definitely raise the ceiling for them. But when I think about where I guess they're just kinda gonna keep riding on the fact that they think Mahomes can just do it on offense all the time, even if the receivers aren't good, because they're not super good.
Dude, it feels, I don't know about you, man. It feels like to me that their GM, Brett Veach, is like living off of this Mahomes pick because their drafting the last several years has not been good.
No, they've been a bad drafting team, and, like, this is what happens, you draft poorly, and this is how it catches up to you, but, they kept Kelsey for probably a one more final season for him. They did give Aloy Gilman, 3 years, $24 million, which is fine. Good Khyiris Tonga, 3 years, $21 million. That definitely
It
helps, I think,
does
up
feel
front.
like with the Chiefs right now, I think with Andy Reid, there's still like a 9-10 win team, even with all these departures. Reid and Mahomes. This feels like the McNabb Reid era post 2004. They're going to win 9-10 games. They're going to live off that aura.
They need to start drafting better, like, they need to go find their Deshaun Jackson, they need to go that's, when the Eagles got back into, like, contender status is when they started hitting some of those draft picks, and it was okay. All of a sudden, like, uh Kevin Curtis is having a nice season, and we have this young, stud in Deshaun Jackson, and, you know, they were a few plays away from going to a Super Bowl. So, the Chiefs we know obviously have that pedigree. Um, I guess they feel like, they can I'm really intrigued to see how they use Kenneth Walker because obviously they're not why I do think it's a good fit, um, despite giving a pretty decent chunk of your cap to a running back. We know how risky that can be, and I don't think he's like Saquon or anything, but, um, for a team that doesn't like to run the ball to begin with, we know the Chiefs just throw it all the time anyways. I do think it's a good fit because, we know how much Walker needed the split carries with Zach Charbonnet to keep him healthy for what was a crazy great playoff run. And I think that his like, the way the Chiefs run their offense will naturally keep him on a pitch count just because they're not gonna turn around and give him the ball 25 times in a game, you know what I mean? Just because they don't wanna do that as a team. Which takes us to the Raiders now, where they spent a lot of money, and then they ended up surprise, you still have Max Crosby. Luckily, they'll have enough money to keep it. Jalen Naylor got a 3-year deal, which I think can help out. It's decent stability in the receiver room. Obviously, they gave Tyler Linderbaum, made him the highest paid center in the NFL by about a country mile. It was currently what Creed Humphrey had like 18 million, and now he's getting 27 million a year. Really crazy
You think
markup
you're going to
in
see more
resetting the
centers
market.
taken in the back end of the first round so teams can get that fifth-year option because now centers are going to be way more expensive?
We'll see if other teams bite and push it that high because I don't know. It just feels like a crazy amount.
I don't think he's the best center in the league. That's the wild thing.
No, I think he's a top 3 center in the league. I don't think he's the best, sure, but I did expect him to be the highest paid
Why didn't the
center.
Ravens pick up his fifth-year option?
I I think the Ravens messed this up by letting him hit free agency, whether it was that or like, I don't know. I just feel like when you're gonna
You could have
reset the
just
market.
tagged. You could have just
Listen,
used
this
the
is what it is.
franchise tag.
You This is what it is. Guys reset the market all the time. That's nothing new. But when you reset the market by like 50%, you know what I mean? Going from 18 million a year to 27 million a year, it's such a massive jump that it's like if he got paid like 21 million a year and it was like, oh, he reset the center market, like that's pretty normal. But it's a massive jump. And listen, the Raiders, we talk about it. Incompetent stats, sure. They have the money to spend. They have the money to throw around and help out what was a
It's
truly a
incompetence
horrible
tax.
offensive line.
It's Mendoza tax.
It's everything because
Linderbaum's agent knew. Listen, they're going to draft Mendoza. We all know it, and their O line was putrid last year, so they're going to make Dan. They're going to basically be like, okay, this is going to be Mendoza's like new best friend is going to be Tyler Linderbaum.
I mean,
So hey, you're
you
going
know
to
what
pay
a
my client out the wazoo if
you know
you
what a
want me
good
down
stat
there.
is too is that the Ravens were like one of the best offensive lines against the blitz, despite the fact that their offensive line is was like bad last year. Like it was, and really the year before wasn't a good unit either. Um, Against the blitz, they're really good, and like you factor that a lot into your center. Calling protections out and making sure everything's all right. That's your center and quarterback being on the same page, and I think that it helps. It helps a lot, for a rookie quarterback to have a center that they feel they can trust a lot with like the protections and stuff. They also gave Quiddy Pay $16 million on a 1-year deal. Nakobe Dean, that's where he ended up with the Las Vegas Raiders on a 3-year, $36 million deal. Great player if he can stay healthy. It's just a huge if. He's always banged up. But those are the type of moves for the Raiders to make there. Yeah, Quay Walker as well. They acquired Teron Johnson via trade. So the Raiders, I mean, they've been pretty active. And then to wrap up the AFC, we have Los Angeles Chargers. I love the Keaton Mitchell move. I think that could be, like you said, a little Eckler thing. I think that in a Mike McDaniel offense that relies so much on speed and being able to get to the edges and put the pressure on the defense, I think that's a guy that can absolutely wreak some havoc in that scheme. So I'm excited for that one for sure. Uh, I thought that they acquired good blockers. I thought
I
they got
agree.
Tyler Biadasz, which is one of the best centers that was available on a very massive discount when you look and see what Linderbaum got, only 3 years, 30 million. Um, you know, Charlie Kolar, great blocking tight end, Alec Ingold, nice blocker. They extended Tyler Tart. They re-signed Khalil Mack, Dalvin Tomlinson they acquired. I do think that McDaniel's putting his hands all over this where he knows how he wants to run offense, which is speed, 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 speed. And you need guys to be able to block on the edges, and that's why he went and got some of the guys he did. So, yeah.
So how do you want to do the NFC?
Uh, let's just speed run through it. We'll start out west, I guess. So the Cardinals signed Gardner Minshew. So it looks like we're gonna have a Minshew Jacoby Brissett quarterback battle out in Arizona. Is that what
They
we're
are
looking at?
also like the Jets. They are going to tank very hard.
Yeah, Tyler Algier. I think it's an interesting landing spot for him. I'm shocked a little. Well, I guess it's a new regime in Atlanta, but I'm not totally sort of shocked that he's gone from there. Kendrick Bourne had a nice year with New England, so he didn't get paid a ton of money, but is in Arizona now. They also signed a couple Eagles, Matt Pryor and Isaac Sayamalu, to Sayamalu.
I
I
think
think is
I
a nice
love the
player.
Tyler Algier move for fantasy. By the way,
Yeah. I think Sayamalu should have been a guy that was targeted by contenders. I really do. Like the Bills or, like Baltimore. I think those teams would have been a good fit for
yeah.
Sayamalu, but unfortunately they didn't do
Well,
that.
let's go to the team that I think maybe made the biggest splash in free agency / trade market.
No, the Rams are awesome. They're making some really good moves. They acquired Trent McDuffie for a first, a fifth, and a sixth, and a future third, and gave him a massive contract, making him the highest paid corner. And then they also signed Jalen Watson for a 3-year, $51 million deal. So they got literally the Chiefs' two starting corners, and they made them their two starting corners. And the Rams, their biggest weakness over the last two seasons have been their cornerbacks, and they absolutely addressed it. And they're, without a doubt in my mind, they're going to be the Super Bowl favorites this year, and they're going to have the best roster on paper this year. I don't think anyone has a chance to pass them. They kept Cam Curl as well. Like it just they addressed what they needed to address, which was the secondary and especially the cornerback room. And I think they addressed it. Like they didn't just, you know what I mean? They didn't just do band-aids. They didn't just go get guys that are okay. Like they went and got out upper echelon caliber players. And I think that's huge. So
It's a big Les Snead is just to make those big time moves. Like
yeah.
he's not afraid to trade firsts. Yeah, all right. I mean, I think the Rams were. I think they're kind of leading the clubhouse, so to speak, in terms of just getting better and being a contending team. All right, let's move on to the Niners.
Yeah. So they signed Mike Evans to a 3-year deal. I guess the money isn't out yet.
I don't
Um,
understand. I don't understand why you sign Mike Evans and let Jawan Jennings walk.
Mike Evans is just old and slow, and that's kind of what we've been talking about with the Niners for a few years now, that they need to get younger and all this sort of stuff, and then they go out and get Mike Evans to a 3-year deal, which is really just a
We're
1-year
also
deal.
rumored to be unloading Trent Williams.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what they're doing, kind of at all. I still think Mike Evans has some juice left, but I don't really think he fits I don't think he's an awesome fit with the Shanahan scheme either. Like, he's really that downfield vertical threat, not like your
John
inbreaker
Lynch is not a
guy.
good general manager, in my opinion, Michael. And my suspicion
Yeah.
with this maneuver is they may look at Mike Evans like the Rams looked at Devontae Adams last year, red zone threat. Does he
Well, Devontae
that
Adams has significantly more juice than what Mike Evans had,
you're well, correct? However, I mean that's
I
my
guess. I
I'm
guess,
guessing
man.
that's
I
their
don't
thought process.
Yeah, and I hear it, I guess. They signed Brett Toth, shout out. They gave Dre Greenlaw, they brought him back, which I'm sure that'll make
Osia
Fred Warner very
Digizuma is
happy.
kind of interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that is interesting because I thought he had a solid year last year
I
for the
was surprised the
Cowboys.
Cowboys got rid of him, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, they also signed Nate Hobbs. An interesting offseason for the Niners. I don't
Right.
think that they're doing anything too scary. And then the
All right,
defending
Michael, you're Super
champions.
Bowl champions.
My Super Bowl team. The Seattle Seahawks, they re-signed Rashid Shaheed, which I guess I'm not super surprised. I feel like they had to keep somebody, and them not keeping Kenneth Walker, I'll be honest, surprised me. I thought they would have kept Kenneth Walker. Um,
I
I
think
do
it's a
think
bad.
that
I
hurts.
agree, Mike. I think it's a bad look for them, even though like the GM logic. I think John Schneider. Interesting. Like when he was during the Legion of Boom days, everyone bragged about him being the best GM. Had several down years of drafting. Was still the GM. Recently built this team that everyone started reglazing him again. Like, oh my god, he's such a genius. And they might win 7 games next year, Michael. In all honesty, no more Clint Kubiak. Your roster got pillaged.
We'll see. Their defense is still quite good, I'll say. I think Shaheed, I do think there's another key to Shaheed instead of him just being like a returner specialist guy. I think there still is an offensive thing to unlock. But listen, you're taking a shot with that sort of money. They kept Josh Jobe on a nice little contract, and they signed Emmanuel Wilson. And I think he's a nice little player, but I mean, it's just not Kenneth Walker.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move to the NFC South. The Falcons have been decently busy. They signed Tua. Crazy. Vet minimum for Tua.
I
Two left.
absolutely.
Is this just like they want their players to only catch left-handed quarterbacks this season? Like, is that what it is? So they have just Penix and Tua. Because Penix
I
is hurt. Like Penix is recovering from an injury. So if he's not like ready or whatever, is this like a you're gonna get used to catching from a left-handed quarterback until Penix is ready? I don't know what they're doing with that.
I'll just give you my theory. I think they're just trying to bomb. They're in the because they traded their first round pick this year to get James Pierce. They're not serious about the quarterback position. They have they're Matt Ryan's running their team, but Ian Cunningham, shout out former Eagles front office guy, you know,
Yeah.
coming in, lousy situation. Um,
They signed a handful of former Eagles. Jahan Dotson, 2-year, 15 million. Olamide Zaccheaus, a little Atlanta reunion. They also gave Azeez Ojulari a 1-year contract. They gave a lot of 1-year deals. Um, they franchise tagged Kyle Pitts. Well, we'll see. The Falcons, they're in a weird spot. We'll see what Stefanski has cooking up with them, but I do think they're in a little interesting situation. The Panthers, they made a big splash. So the big one is they signed Kenny Pickett to a 1-year deal, $4 million. Kidding. Um, but nice little backup there, I guess. They got John Mechie, who, familiarity with Bryce Young back at Alabama. Um, but we're really beating around the bush here. They made two really big signings. I'll talk about the one I like more, honestly. They gave Devin Lloyd a 3-year, $45 million contract.
one of the best traditional linebackers. He's
And I
not
think
a
it's an
non-edge linebackers in the
yeah,
NFL.
an off-ball linebacker. I think that was a great signing. I thought he was
I
very,
hate the
very
term off-ball linebacker because linebackers are supposed to swarm the ball.
yeah, it's before the snap, so that's I make that sort of connection there. You're not lined up on the line of scrimmage. Um, but yeah, Devin Lloyd was awesome last year for the Jags. It was a huge part of their defense, and tough that they let him walk out the door. I think that's a really nice move for the Panthers, a team that's really struggled at the linebacker position in like the post Luke Kuechly world. You think of like Josie Jewell, for example. Um,
Well,
but
that's why they lost to the Rams. Is that they're great at getting turnovers, Michael, but when it comes to like you said, filling in the margins, they were just bad, and you know they needed outside a pass rush, and they needed a linebacker that's good to help stop the run. And well,
yeah, and then they got Jalen Phillips, which listen, Jalen Phillips is a nice player. He really helped push the Eagles defense to a new level last year. But I am thrilled they did not give him a 4-year, $120 million deal. Let me tell you. Now, listen, incompetence tax, sure. Is this just the Panthers? Like, listen, we missed out on Milton Williams last year because we got outbid. We're not letting it happen again. And fair enough, fair enough.
I
Maybe
wouldn't call it incompetence tax, Michael. I would call it the Eagles probably made a very competitive offer. And then, the
I
Panthers, like you just said, they did want to lose out on him. And they know, like, oh, hey, like, oh, he was so good with the Eagles. And now, like, we won the division too. So we want to take the next step.
I
We got
think
to.
I think the agent of Jalen Phillips probably told the Panthers, like, "Listen, if he's gonna leave Philadelphia, they made a decent offer, you need to, like, blow him away." And I think there's truth to that. I really do think he wanted to stay, but I think he had a walkaway number, and I think they even went over the walkaway number.
Are you
Listen,
annoyed at
30,000,000
the
a
fact
year is a
that
lot.
Are
It's
you
a lot of
annoyed at the
money.
fact that Jalen Phillips like glazed Philadelphia and like glazed Vic, and now he's just gone after like 7 games?
No, I mean, 30,000,000 a year, man. I'm not,
Yeah,
it's you're not turning that down. Like, I just think it's a guy that has had an ACL injury, he's had an Achilles injury, and, did only have, like, 5.5 sacks last year, and I he's getting paid a lot of money. I don't think he's a consistent game breaker like that. I think he can break a few games, but when you think about the top tier edge rushers, they're doing it, like, out of 17 games, they're wrecking it, like, 12 times, you know what I mean? And I think he's more like wrecking it 7 times, 6 times, you know what I mean? I think there's gonna be a handful of losses that the Panthers experience where their fans on Twitter are gonna be like, "Our highest paid player, like, pass rush win rate was in, like, the 10th percentile on the day," and it was, like, stuff like that. Like, you're gonna get they're not gonna there's gonna be games that they lose where they're close, and it's like, "Man, if only we felt some of the impact from Jalen Phillips." And you know, that's tough when you're giving a guy a big contract like that, but I do think he's gonna provide some positives for a team that desperately needed a pass rush, so we'll see. The Saints, I thought they had a nice little offseason. I thought they had a nice year last year, and then they go out and get Travis Etienne, 4 years, $52 million. I think that's an awesome scheme fit with Kellen Moore. I think Noah Fant's a nice little move that they made. I think Caden Ellis provides some good stability after losing Demario
David
Davis.
Edwards.
Yeah, yeah. All those things. I really do think that the Saints are I think they're coming back up. I think they're on the upswing for
I
sure.
think if Tyler Shuck is legit, like if he's like, I don't know, we'll say like 2014 Kirk Cousins, if that's like, or like Kirk Cousins is like his ceiling, we'll just say, yeah, they can win this division because it's absolute slop. But
Yeah, I do think
we
there's
agree.
a
We agree. This, I would say the same. They had a logjam at corner. They lost Alontae Taylor, underrated player. But yeah, I agree. I think the
yeah,
Saints had a nice little offseason. Moving on,
Tampa.
your favorite
They
team, Michael, the Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I know. This actually sucked to see. Kenny Gainwell signing a 2-year deal
I don't
with the
get it.
really? The receiving back. I think it fits pretty nicely for what they wanna do. I think, honestly, it just makes a nightmare fantasy Tampa Bay Buccaneer backfield situation. You're gonna some people are gonna draft Bucky Irving all excited, and Kenny Gainwell's gonna be vulturing some of those catches away and vulturing those touches for sure.
I thought Sean
Um,
Tucker played okay, all things considered. Like, listen, man. Here's the
but
thing
Sean
with
Tucker is just not catching passes. Like,
Here's
there's
the thing
that
with
too.
Tampa. Their O line isn't very good, banged up. Their defense. I mean, Michael, did I say several months ago when we were talking about Arch Manning, a team that would be a dark horse to draft him
You did
would
say
be
Tampa
the
was.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
You did, and I don't
I
think that's out of the
stand by
question.
that take I
Yeah,
had
listen,
because
we'll circle back in a year, and I'd be I don't know how I'd feel, I guess, if they were actually in a position to take him. I think it'd be funny because 'cause they'd suck, but I don't want them to get Arch if he's gonna be any good. Um, but listen, I think Gainwell's a nice fit down there. They like to throw to their running backs. They like to have him as a check down option. You think of, like I think of Pittsburgh's offense, and I think of Tampa's offense, and I think they have some similarities there, and how they use their backfield, and I think that fits. Gainwell had an awesome year last year for the Steelers. Um, so yeah, they kept Kate Otten too. They gave him a 3-year, $30 million contract to re-sign him. They also gave Alex Anzalone a 2-year, $17 million contract, which that was I thought Nakobe Dean was going to end up in Tampa, so I'm happy that he didn't end up down there. Especially we know Todd Bowles loves to blitz those linebackers. I thought Dean would have been a perfect fit, but Anzalone's a pretty good fit too. They gave Ashawn Robinson a 1-year, $10 million as well. It's like an okay off season, not really anything too offensive. Which takes us to the NFC North. The Chicago Bears I guess I thought they'd be a little more active than they've been. They gave
This
Jedrick
was a very
Wills a
bad
1-year
free
deal.
agency, Michael. This was very poor.
Yeah, they
So the Bears, it's so like, listen, I was watching some highlights of the Bears defense, like the lowlights from this past year. And listen, I think Dennis Allen is a good defensive coordinator, but Michael, we agree that when your defense is entirely based off turnovers, and turnovers are a luck based stat, right?
they're highly variant, absolutely.
Yes, that's not good. And I think everyone kind of thought the Bears were either going to get either Crosby or Hendrickson. And look, they could still get Max Crosby.
They could still go get Max Crosby, and
That's
honestly,
not off the table. The Raiders are
that is the big
claiming they want to keep him. No, you had a trade agreed upon like a week and a half ago. You obviously want to move on from him.
Yeah, I do think that, dead serious, I think that that is a huge, huge, like that is a massive way for the Bears to win this offseason, really, is if they go get Max Crosby and make that pass rush that much better and make themselves against the run that much better. Really, really do. So I guess jury's not out on obviously jury's not out on the offseason. It's still very early, but I do think the Bears can definitely make a splash that way. But Garrett Bradbury they acquired via trade, which I thought was a nice little move. Um, Devin Bush as well, going to be a starter for them. So we'll see, though. We'll see. They still have some more stuff to do. Detroit. So they sent out David Montgomery, and then they signed Isaiah Pacheco, which, we feel how we feel about Pacheco. We're not very high on him, but if you're only paying him $1.8 million, it's very much nothing. Like it truly is next to nothing. I think it's still a nicer compliment. It's a nice complimentary piece, I guess. Is just a guy that's going to be a physical runner. The lack of speed definitely hurts him. They got Juice Scruggs, which will help out some of that interior of their offensive line. They got Tyler Conklin, which that feels totally like a Detroit Lions move with the tight end room. And they gave Cade Mays a 3-year, $25 million deal, which it's better than nothing after the issues with Frank Ragnow. You know what I mean? After him retiring. So I do think that's a step in the right direction too. But overall, I don't think the Lions' way of getting better from last year was going to be to spend a ton in free agency. You know,
I agree. The issue with the Lions, obviously, Michael, is well, the like they kind of already kind of built the team out. It was coaching, and look, they hired Drew Petzing to be their new offensive coordinator, which you know
we'll see.
when
We'll really
Kyler
just
came back
see.
from injury, like he played well, and everyone kind of, including me, I bought into the hype. And I mean, look, if
We'll see.
he's,
It's a much better slew of talent in Detroit to work with
I
than in Arizona.
agree, I
Yeah.
100% agree. But again, Detroit's a team that's built from draft picks, and they're probably going to do that again this year. All right, Green
Yeah.
Bay Packers. Wow, Michael, this
Not
team.
a fan of this offseason so far, I have to say. Not a big fan of it. Um,
I'll put it to you this way: their little seventh seed streak they're on with the playoffs.
yeah.
You might be wishing for that. I think if you're the Packers.
Yeah, I mean, you got a little bit of a brain drain with the coaching staff.
Well,
Both
brain
coordinators
drain
are gone.
slash like losing players, like
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like
because not to keep this in mind too, Michael. Michael Parsons, they traded a lot to get him, right?
they did.
He's coming off a torn ACL that he suffered late in the year. There's no guarantee that he's going to be 100% healthy week one. He's
Mhm.
either going to be on a pitch count like he was last year, coming off the back
Or he's
injury.
just not going to be playing. Like he's just going to be
Now,
rehabbing
I was
still,
about to get to that too.
Yeah.
So, like, dude, they might be cooked because
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
yeah.
It'll definitely be interesting. I mean, Javon Hargrave, he doesn't move me as much as he used to move me, especially not in the run game, which I think was kind of an issue of theirs against the run. Zaire Franklin, which they traded away their nose tackle for, which is fine, but they did lose Quay Walker. Um, and then they signed Benjamin St-Juste. It's not much. It's really not much of an offseason for me at this point with Green Bay. I'm not super high on their offseason. A team that I am higher on their offseason are these pesky Minnesota Vikings, a team that, listen, we can slander and give crap as much as we want, but they won 9 games last year with JJ McCarthy playing quarterback for how many games? You know, and Carson Wentz.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah. I wish I could have seen your face when when we're talking about doing this podcast. I was like, yo, so what time was like? What time do you want to do it on Saturday, McCarthy? And you're like, are we
uh,
really using 9 as a?
we can't do it. We cannot do it. We just can't. And this is, I mean, it was the worst kept secret that they did not want McCarthy to be the week 1 starter this year. They definitely, I think, are regretting the whole Darnold situation. However, this is about this is probably the best like value quarterback acquisition, quite literally, maybe in the history of the NFL. Like, has there ever been a quarterback with as much talent as Kyler Murray has to be signed on a minimum contract, the veteran minimum? Like, no, it is never. I feel like maybe it has, but I feel like it's never happened before. Where Kyler has no issues because he is getting a enormous check from the Arizona Cardinals, and the Vikings check is only for the minimum. And if you're a team like Minnesota, and you bring back Aaron Jones, you look at how nasty the defense has been over the last few years, where it's enough to win full of games, and you're just getting an improvement in quarterback play tremendously. And it's like, JJ McCarthy isn't necessarily a perfect scheme fit either with the play action, throw over the middle, whatever. But then you get Kyler Murray, who's obviously a lot more talented, obviously a lot more dynamic. And maybe if, you know, Kevin O'Connell's got to tweak his scheme a little bit to better fit out Kyler instead of trying to force him to be like, a guy that throws it over the middle a ton when he's not usually been that guy. I think that works well, man. I really do. Plays I think it just plays. I think it's one of those teams that you look and we feel like this Seahawks run kind of came out of nowhere. I definitely think the Vikings can be one of those teams where they could win 12 games next year off the back of great defense and improved quarterback play. Like that's really what Seattle was. It was great defense and improved quarterback play. And they were the 1 seed and kind of cruised to the Super Bowl. And I think Minnesota, with improved quarterback play and a great defense, can absolutely go on a run, and definitely make the playoffs. Definitely contend in a very tough division and make some noise in the playoffs. I really do. As long as Kyler can stay healthy, I think it's a great situation.
I agree to a certain extent. Um, this does feel like Kevin O'Connell kind of is on the hot seat because it's like he I think he wanted JJ McCarthy. I think he kind of gave up on Darnold way too quickly, and then he pretended like, oh, I didn't want JJ McCarthy. He's kind of a rat, in my opinion.
Wow.
He's kind of a rat where he's he's probably like a good head coach, but like he should not have any fingerprints in roster decisions. Like,
I mean, he wanted Darnold, right? And like ended up being right on that. He wanted Daniel Jones, who ended up getting paid a lot of money. I think he deserves. Listen, I think the
hey,
JJ
I want
McCarthy
everyone's
trade.
slop. I want the slop. I
Oh,
don't
he
want.
makes the slop good. He sees the true in the slop, and I think he was. You know what it was like? It was almost like a heat check. It was like you know, oh, I got Darnold. I got Daniel Jones getting a nice contract. Now, let's see. We got 9 now. We're making 9 a good player, and like it didn't work. And he's got to go get a layup, and that's Kyler Murray on a minimum. So, like, that's that. Let's head to the NFC East to wrap up. So, Dallas Cowboys, they re-signed Javonte Williams. They gave a franchise tag to George Pickens, which like you're already scratching your head. They acquired Rashawn Gary from the Green Bay Packers for a fourth, and they gave a
Who is not a good player anymore.
yeah, yeah, and they gave a 3-year deal to Jalen Thompson worth a max of 36 million as a safety. So It's not necessarily bad. I don't think it's pretty much of nothing. Like, I think their biggest thing was making sure, George Pickens was gonna be on the team, and I guess if you're
You
gonna
know
go
what?
about that in the
Shout out
franchise
N'Kobe
tag.
Dean. Shout out N'Kobe Dean and
Yeah.
Reed for turning the Cowboys down both times to come play for
I don't
them.
know if they turned Reed down because Reed got, like, substantially less money than what Jalen Thompson got, like, a difference of about, like, $4,000,000 in AAV. I feel like they just didn't they definitely pushed after Dean, and Dean elected to go to the Raiders, which, like, shout out, that's awesome, but I don't know if they actually made it. I think it was more just rumor that he was gonna be interested in Dallas with Parker, but listen, I do think their big move comes from, like, acquiring, like, getting Christian Parker as their D coordinator and, like, a cleaner bill of health, making sure Pickens is on the team. There's enough pieces down there to be alright. The Giants, they pillaged some of the Raiders with, Harbaugh coming over. They got Pat Ricard, they got Isaiah Likely. Um, you know, Isaiah Likely, I think, is a fine player. I think it's a lot of money for a guy that can't block at all. Um, they re-signed Illuminor. They brought back Evan Neal. They gave Tremaine Edmonds a 3-year, $36 million deal, which I think is fair because their run game was terrible, and a lot of that was because of how they had, like, the worst linebackers in the NFL last year. So you go out and get Tremaine Edmonds, and that helps out. So
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, I mean, very similar to like the Ravens, kind of like some of their moves, bringing bringing a couple former Ravens.
yeah,
Yeah,
the Washington Commanders, they kept Marcus Mariota, which I think is a nice backup. Rashad White, which I also think that's a pretty fair. I think that's a solid little fit too. You want to get a guy that can catch checkdowns from Jaden Daniels, get a guy that he trusts to get the ball out of his hands quick too, if the pressure's getting through. De'Ami Brown, they brought back. Obviously, they felt that he had his best year there, and Jacksonville wanted no parts of it anymore. They kept Traylon Burks, which I think is also a nice little move. Seems like he might have put a little career together through himself last year and trying to build off that. Laramie Tunsil got a big extension, so that's where the Sixers tax money went, to making sure Tunsil got an extra couple years on his deal. Uh, fucking guy. Clavon Chason got a 1-year, $12 million contract. That's another, like, oh, they also gave Adafe Owe 4 years, 100 million. So that's like they are throwing a lot of money around, and it's pissing me off because I know where it's coming from.
it's
Like,
just hilarious that they're spending it on bad players. I just want to quote tweet.
dude, Tim Settle, 3 years, $24
I
million
want to. I
dollars.
want to
Leo
quote.
Chanel, 3 years,
I want
24
to
million.
quote tweet the Odafe Owe signing, saying we let Jerry McCain go so the pedophile can sign a mediocre edge rusher.
Yeah, I mean that's literally what it is. It's jarring how much money the Commanders have spent. Like, they spent a lot more than I honestly thought. A lot more than I thought they did.
Well, it's gonna be great when like I'm just gonna bring this up real quick. Do you see that Steve Tisch is gonna leave his portion in a trust fund to his children so he can avoid
No,
his
legal issues.
portion being taken in a lawsuit because of the blank files?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully Josh Harris
Josh Harris was
comes
next.
in because he's
And
evil.
the Philadelphia Eagles, to wrap us up, they re-signed Grant Calcaterra. I actually hate that. They signed Johnny Munt. I like that. Nice blocking tight end. Obviously, the tight ends were atrocious at blocking last
We've already
year.
talked about Jordan Davis.
Yeah, Jordan Davis re-signed,
I like the
extended.
Arnold. I like this Ebit. Oh God,
Ebikite.
yeah,
Ebikite. 1 year,
I like it.
$7.3 million as an like a hybrid, like one of those off ball, if not off ball, one of those uh outside linebackers that rushes the passer, but is also comfortable dropping into coverage that Vic Fangio
I
likes.
like this move a lot. He could be like a Van Ginkel move, like with
Yeah, I
this
too.
reeks of like Vic.
Yeah.
Vic's fingerprints all over
They
it.
gave Jonathan Jones a 1-year deal, which I also think is a nice move, nice depth piece. And then non-depth piece, a starter, creating, what could be a very, very enticing quarterback trio. Tariq Woolen from the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks, one of the biggest corners like ever in the NFL. 1 year deal up to 15 million. This feels like a James Bradbury sort of move. It's getting a guy that had some good years in his past, is maybe a lower end of his current value, but pairing him along with a great cornerback and a good defense, it has a chance to thrive and look special. And we saw, James Bradbury in 2022 be all pro caliber playing alongside Slay and, the defense that almost did they break the sack record? They almost broke the sack record. And I really think with this defensive backs, like with Quinion, with DeJean, and now with Woolen, it is legitimately scary. And when they run in their base defense, which isn't a ton, they can move DeJean back to safety and have him kind of quarterback from back there when they're in their base. Getting a physical guy like Woolen, not afraid to tackle either. Like I thought Adoree Jackson was pretty solid last year, all things considered. Obviously, it started off really poorly, but I
I think
think that
Dory Jackson's issue, like he was a willing tackler, but he would always get injured when he had to
so
make
small,
open
man. Like
field
he's
tackles.
genuinely a very small human being in comparison as an NFL player, and he would get banged up from it. And this is like the literal complete opposite. I think in a good system with a another strong head coach or defensive coordinator, coming from like McDonald now to Vic Fangio. I think it's a great move. I think that this was a question that a lot of Eagles fans had, and it was like, are they going to draft a corner and whatever? And this kind of silences that. I think it gives them an opportunity to kind of relax about a position that was a little frustrating to constantly worry about. That CB2. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the Tariq Woolen signing. And then finally, which I thought was a really much needed thing that they did, was they gave Braden Mann a 4-year extension, which was thank God. Like I was quite worried for a second that they were just gonna F around with the punter, but they did keep Braden Mann, which is very, very important. He was huge for the Eagles the last couple seasons, especially last year with the offense struggling the way it did. He was able to flip the field a
One of
lot
my
and was huge.
one of my new coworkers, he's a big sports guy, so we've been kind of like talking a lot about sports.
Yeah.
He was like, I think Braden Mann might be the best Eagles punter they had since Sean Landeta, and I was like, wow,
I
what a
mean, Donnie Jones, man.
what
Donnie
I was
Jones is
like,
pretty
man.
good.
I thought
But
Donnie
yeah,
Jones was a good punter. I was just
yeah.
like, wow. I said to him, I was like, I said, dude, it's not a good call. It's not a. It's kind of an indictment on your offense when you're excited about re-signing or signing like a good punter
Mhm.
because guys are considered good punters punt a lot, which means your offense is not good.
Sucks. Yeah, yeah,
Yes, it's not good. So hopefully Brady Mann doesn't get as much work this year as he did last year. We have a hard stop. We're
yeah.
gonna so next week is going to be the week before opening day in baseball. We will be discussing, we'll do MLB predictions, and I have a very strong feeling we're going to have a ton of more football news coming our way, especially with the Eagles. The Eagles have pushed back Dallas Goedert's contract window,
Yeah.
and I just saw that the Eagles have $29 million in cap space with that $20 million cap hold on Goddard. I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to see a trade between today until our next show.
All right. Well,
Of
we'll
note,
have to wait and see. We will have to wait and
Max
see.
Crosby. All right, well, everybody, that's our
Yeah.
show for today. I want everyone. It's a great weekend. The sun's out, as you can see.
Yeah,
I look angelic right now.
enjoy some more conference championship conference tournament play in college basketball. Enjoy some semifinal or some quarterfinal World Baseball Classic action. And yeah.
We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on Fired Up Sports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.